Hi, everybody. It's Jay, and I am back in the booth with you for another sneak peek video preview for this week's new release here on Say with Jay. This week's new release is A Marriage of Convenience in the Show Me State. It's the fifth book in Jessie Gussman's Cowboy Crossing Western Sweet Romance series, and we'll have a bit more to say about the book along with a preview for you in a bit. But I wanted to mention a couple of things first. Over the past couple of weeks in these previews, we've asked for your help in selecting a novella of Jessie's that we're going to present in 4 weekly episodes starting December 23rd, the Friday before Christmas. The response from you guys was fantastic, and we had 3 great choices. The choice that you guys made was pretty clear-cut. It's going to be a Christmas car kerfuffle. I'm looking forward to this, and I hope you are too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, so please join us starting Friday, December the 23rd for a Christmas car kerfuffle. I also wanted to mention a little event that happened to me this past week. I was grocery shopping, and as I am prone to do this time of year, I was there in a University of Alabama sweatshirt. Alabama across the chest, big A. And I was in the international food aisle, because I'm fancy like that, looking at tortillas, looking for tortillas. And I saw an elderly gentleman a couple of cart lengths down from me. He looked my way, and we kind of acknowledged each other, smiled, said good morning, that kind of thing. And he saw my shirt and said, well, kind of a tough year for Alabama. And context for anybody who's not a college football fan, Alabama actually lost 2 whole games this year on the last play of the game each time, which for an Alabama fan does constitute a disappointing season. So that's just us. Roll Tide. Anyway, I'm kind of used to getting comments like that, especially when I have on Alabama gear from, here in North Georgia, usually from Georgia fans or fans from another school. And it's always just kind of playful back and forth and, But I said, yes, sir, can't win them all. We'll get them next year, that kind of thing. And he looked at me and just kind of nodded and goes, yeah. And then there was this long, pregnant pause. Reached in his little jacket pocket, pulled out a little brochure, and said, can I speak to you for a minute? And at that point, I know what's coming. And I kind of school my features, a smile on my face, and try not to make the face I'm making internally, which is something like, "Argh." And sure enough, the guy says, if you died today and were brought before God, what would you say? Or something to that effect. And so, I don't know about you. And first, let me say, I'm not knocking this guy doing this at all. I mean, I'd never criticize anybody doing what they feel the Lord is leading them to do, especially sharing your faith. But for me, and maybe some of you, it's kind of uncomfortable, especially as a believer already. I kind of want to tell the guy, well, actually, I did tell the guy, kind of like, you're preaching to the choir, but I let him go, inside, I realized I really wasn't in any hurry to be anywhere, and uncomfortable though it may have been, I kind of had a little voice inside that said, be nice, hear him out. And so I did. I let him go through his spiel. And as he was talking about that, I remembered that that very morning, one of the devotions that I read was about the parable of the bridesmaids, or parable of the virgins, or the handmaidens, however you've heard it. But the point of that parable is how the wise are prepared for the unknown second coming of the Lord. And, I mentioned that to him, and I guess he was not used to people engaging with him in that way. And you could just see, he wasn't just like doing this from rote and very unenthusiastically. He was very sincere. But just my engaging with him, the wattage on his face, just his face just lit up. And, and we had actually a rather not unpleasant conversation. And when he finished, he put his hand on my arm and said, "You know what? Thank you. Thank you for listening to me and hearing me all the way through." And I thanked him for sharing, and we smiled and went our separate ways. Once I got to the car and was sitting there, I honestly, by that time, had already forgotten the exact words that he had said, his exact message. But I was thinking about how, just taking the time to be kind and nice, and even, doing something just as passive as listening had made such a difference to him. I know I've mentioned being kind here before, but I really, I hope that can encourage you, because I was praying that it'll keep encouraging me to look for opportunities to just say hello to people and smile and acknowledge them, or maybe even to be kind in situations that are a little less comfortable. Because ultimately, God will bless both of you in that interaction. So, just wanted to share. All right, let's talk for a bit about A Marriage of Convenience in the Show Me State. It's the story of Zane Hudson, a full-time farmer who has just gotten custody of his 4 young daughters. Full custody. His ex-wife has had issues that she can no longer care for the girls. And he is wondering how on earth he's going to take care of 4 girls while he's having to manage and work his farm. It's the story of Waverly Madras, who is the mother of 6 boys. She's recently widowed, and her husband was not a nice guy and didn't leave them well taken care of. And now she is on the verge of financial ruin and losing their home, and is kind of at a loss of what to do. A chance meeting between the 2 of them, when they are trapped in, of all places, a truck stop restroom. You've just got to read the story to know the whole background there. But while they're trapped together, they talk about their situations, and both kind of realize that a marriage of convenience might just be the solution to their problems. This story, all of Jessie's stories, have lots of humor in them, but I have to say, this one, aside from her romantic comedies, this story has some of the most humor in it that will have you just laughing out loud in places. And it still has all the things all the other things that you expect in any Jessie Gussman novel. It's got faith, it's got family and fun, and, of course, it's going to have romance. I don't want to spoil any more. Here is a sample of A Marriage of Convenience in the Show Me State. I hope you'll listen to it and enjoy it, and I hope you'll come back this Friday for the full release of A Marriage of Convenience in the Show Me State, here on Say with Jay. Zane threw a sack of feed on the back of Reed's truck. It landed with a thump. He and Reed always split a feed delivery, since the larger delivery was cheaper. "Don't you think this is kind of sudden?" Reed said, having just heard from Deacon, who was also there, that Zane had gotten married. Zane was pretty sure Deacon hadn't come to visit, but just to check on him. Maybe, knowing Deacon, he was making sure Zane was treating his wife okay. He hefted up another 50-pound sack of feed and put it on his shoulder. "No, I don't." If there was anything he'd learned as the oldest of 6 boys, it was that he could never show weakness, and never admit a mistake. Just because last week this time he couldn't have told anyone Waverly's name didn't mean that he was going to admit that his marriage was sudden, and that might not be the best way to start a future together. "So you've been seeing her and just haven't mentioned it to anyone?" Reed grunted as he came beside Zane and hefted up his own feed sack. "Is this the Inquisition or something? I mean, I can answer these questions if you really need me to, but I had never really thought that my romantic affairs were of that great of interest to you." He was being rude, although his words were true. Why would Reed care who he was dating or getting married to? Deacon slapped his feed sack down and looked across the truck bed at Zane. He might be the oldest, but Deacon commanded respect somehow. "We're your brothers. We love you, and we care about you." His eyes slanted to Reed as Reed slapped his bag down over the tailgate and braced his hands on the end of it. "But I think you're concerned about the wrong person." Deacon's gaze, serious and probing, went back to Zane. "How is Waverly doing?" "If you're so concerned about her, go in the house and ask her yourself." Why was he being so belligerent? Maybe because he didn't appreciate people sticking their noses in his business. Or maybe because he knew that, typically, women needed a little bit gentler treatment than what he'd dished out. They'd been married a week, and they'd spent less than 5 minutes alone, if one added up all the times they'd passed each other in the hall with no kids around. Waverly had settled into the routine of getting the kids up, cooking breakfast and getting them off to school, cooking lunch for him and the hands, doing laundry and cleaning house and somehow finding time to get her baking done, as well as cooking supper and helping with schoolwork. They'd been singing and telling stories in the evening together, and she looked exhausted. She'd also never looked at him, not after the first day. It made him sad, because he'd liked the way she looked at him with stars in her eyes, like she admired him, liked him, and wanted to be with him. She'd gone from that to not even looking at him. He wondered if he'd imagined it to begin with. Deacon hadn't moved. "I take it that's a no?" "A no for what?" "A no for you haven't been treating your wife very well." "The way I treat my wife isn't anyone's business except mine and hers." "I didn't want to see the same thing happen to you and Waverly that happened to you and Vicky." Zane slapped his hand down on the side of Reed's pickup and gripped it tight. His words came out soft and pinched. "Are you insinuating that Vicky leaving me was anyone's fault except for hers? Did you forget that she was the one who cheated and left?" "I'm not insinuating anything." Deacon never got angry, but he was never cowed by anyone else's anger either. I'm flat out telling you, you neglected her. I'm not saying that makes anything that she did right, and I'm not saying that she wouldn't have done it anyway. But she needed a little more from you than a few minutes in the evening after supper. You get so wrapped up in your work and the things that you're doing, bossing everyone around and starting project after project, and you never come up for air, or look around and see anyone has needs but you. Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.